The 23rd of December dawned bright and clear, a perfect winter morning for a family gathering, if anyone was prepared for it. But Sarah Bennett, the matriarch of the household, had no intention of overseeing this Christmas. She had planned her getaway weeks in advance, and for once, she was determined to let chaos play itself out. Her phone had already started buzzing by 6:30 a.m., though she did not reach for it immediately. The first call was from her son, Ryan, frantic and barely coherent. "Mom, please. I don't know what to do." His voice trembled through the receiver. Sarah, sipping her cappuccino on the terrace of the hotel she had booked, allowed herself a slow, satisfied smile. She did not answer, letting the panic simmer on the other end. Another voicemail followed, Sarah's daughter-in-law, Jessica, sobbing, her voice breaking with desperation. "Sarah, I know you're mad at me, but I can't. We don't know what to make for 25 people. The stores don't open until 8, and they're arriving exactly at that time. Please call us." Sarah leaned back in the plush chair, the masseuse working her shoulders in the hotel spa. She could almost feel the tension in her body, the knots that had lingered for years, finally beginning to unravel, just like the years of lies and entitlement that Jessica had forced upon her household. By 7:15, another call came, this time from a man she did not immediately recognize. "Mrs. Bennett? This is Alejandro, Jessica's uncle. We've arrived early at your home and will be there in 15 minutes. I look forward to speaking with you about the matters we've discussed." Perfect. Exactly as Sarah had imagined. The family would arrive at the peak of Ryan and Jessica's panic. She allowed herself a slow, private chuckle, thinking of the luxurious breakfast she had waiting. Smoked salmon eggs Benedict, freshly brewed coffee, and the knowledge that she would be miles away from the chaos. She checked the voicemails again. Ryan's voice, breaking under the weight of responsibility he had ignored for years, pleaded for guidance. Jessica's panic was audible in every syllable. Empty pantries, missing tablecloths, nowhere near enough dinnerware. For the first time, they were confronting reality, the simple, unromantic truth that a household does not run itself. Sarah's mind wandered, imagining Jessica racing to the grocery store with a list that had no chance of covering the magnitude of the event, Ryan attempting to instruct her while desperately trying to maintain some semblance of control, and the guests arriving in a matter of hours. It was not cruelty that amused her, it was justice. For 5 years, she had done everything to make Jessica appear competent and the perfect hostess, while she remained unseen, unappreciated, and taken for granted. Now, the scales were finally tipping. Pulling out her laptop, Sarah began drafting an email she had been planning meticulously. Alejandro and Valeria, Jessica's family members, would see the truth in black and white. Every financial inconsistency, every manipulated story, every borrowed sum of money falsely attributed to her own generosity, everything would come to light. By the time she finished, she was ready. All that remained was to enjoy the final hours of calm before the storm she had orchestrated. By 8 a.m., the Bennett household was a whirlwind of confusion. Ryan stood in the kitchen, staring blankly at an empty refrigerator. Jessica ran between the pantry and the living room, wringing her hands, desperately searching for anything resembling Christmas preparation. Grocery bags lay scattered on the counters, some unopened, others half empty, a testament to their unplanned chaos. "Mom, please call us." Ryan muttered to the empty air, his phone clutched in his hand. "Jessica doesn't know what to do, and they're going to be here any minute." Jessica's voice came from the hallway, trembling. I don't even know where the good dishes are, or the tablecloths." Or, her sentence broke into a sob. "We can't feed them. We can't." The front doorbell rang. Alejandro and Valeria had arrived, perfectly on schedule, a silent but imposing presence. They were not met with festive cheer, but the stark reality of unpreparedness. Ryan tried to explain, but his voice faltered under the weight of his inexperience. "Where is the woman of the house?" Alejandro asked, his tone authoritative, scanning the room with a mixture of confusion and expectation. "Where is Sarah?" Ryan swallowed hard. She's on a trip. She had to, deal with something urgent. But I can handle it." Alejandro's eyes narrowed. Ryan could feel the gravity of the moment pressing down on him. The stark reality was sinking in. No magical hands would appear to set the table, cook the feast, or orchestrate the perfect Christmas. Everything rested on him and Jessica, and for the first time in 5 years, they were utterly unprepared. In a panic, Jessica dialed her mother. "Mom, please, you have to help. The house, the food, the decorations, none of it's ready." Sarah's voice, calm and unflustered, came through the phone. "Jessica, I am on vacation. You will have to manage this yourselves." Jessica's sobs intensified. But, but 25 people. They traveled so far. My uncle came from Miami. My cousin Valeria canceled plans. We can't do this alone. Sarah's tone did not waver. "Then it's time you learned what I've known for years. Running a household isn't magic. It takes planning, effort, and responsibility." On the other end, Ryan finally began to grasp the magnitude of their oversight. I, I didn't realize," his voice trailed off, a mix of fear and dawning comprehension. We've taken you for granted." The realization hit them both. All these years, Sarah had been the unseen force, managing every gathering, every meal, every celebration, while Jessica claimed credit and Ryan remained oblivious. Meanwhile, Sarah, miles away in her hotel suite, allowed herself a small, private smile. She could picture them now, frantic and scrambling, forced to confront reality head-on for the first time. This was not cruelty, it was justice. As the morning wore on, the chaos in the Bennett household escalated. Ryan frantically called local restaurants, only to find they were fully booked. Jessica attempted to organize a shopping run, but the stores were not yet open. Alejandro and Valeria watched silently, their expressions a mix of incredulity and growing understanding. Sarah knew the best was yet to come. The family had arrived, the guests were on the way, and the full impact of years of deception was about to unravel before their eyes. By late morning, the tension in the Bennett household had reached a boiling point. Ryan and Jessica were still scrambling, the house a mess of grocery bags, empty counters, and scattered holiday decorations. Alejandro and Valeria moved deliberately through the rooms, their presence a silent reminder of the gravity of the situation. Suddenly, Jessica's phone buzzed. It was an email from Sarah, carefully composed, each word designed to cut through the chaos without a hint of malice. "Dear Alejandro and Valeria, I apologize for any confusion caused by my absence. However, I believe it is crucial you understand the true dynamics of the Bennett household. Jessica has been living in a bubble of convenience and privilege, relying on my constant efforts to manage every event and every family gathering. It is time she confronts the reality of her choices." Jessica read the message aloud, her voice trembling. Ryan stood frozen, understanding dawning. Alejandro's expression hardened as he processed the email. "So all of this, it's not just disorganization, it's a pattern of dependency." Valeria nodded, holding a folder of documents that Sarah had sent earlier. Each page detailed years of meticulous planning, grocery lists, recipe notes, and financial oversight that Jessica had taken credit for. Jessica tried to interject. "Mom, wait. This isn't." Alejandro cut her off. "We trusted you, Jessica. We believed in your responsibility. And now, it appears that everything we were told about this household, this family, was false." Ryan felt a heavy weight settle in his chest. For the first time, he saw what had been invisible all along. Sarah had been the backbone of every celebration, every meal, every holiday. And he and Jessica, had assumed it would all just happen. That magic hands would always be there. He turned to Jessica, his voice quiet but firm. We really didn't see it, Jess. I never realized how much Mom did for us, for everyone." Jessica's face flushed with shame. I thought I was helping. I just wanted to make things perfect." Alejandro's gaze was unyielding. "Perfection is meaningless when it comes at the expense of honesty and respect. Your mother-in-law deserves better than 5 years of invisible servitude." At that moment, the doorbell rang again. This time, Sarah's lawyer, Michael, arrived, professional and composed, carrying the weight of legal authority. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "I understand there are matters here that require clarification." Jessica's eyes widened. "Lawyer? What?" Michael held up a hand. "After years of financial manipulation, misrepresentation, and disrespect, Mrs. Anderson requires formal protection. Today is not just about holiday chaos. It is about accountability." Ryan swallowed hard, realizing the magnitude of the morning. The chaos in the kitchen, the panic, the disorganized groceries. It was the beginning of a reckoning. Sarah, even from miles away, had orchestrated a scenario that forced honesty, confrontation, and consequence. Alejandro stepped forward, addressing both Jessica and Ryan. It's time to face the reality of your actions. No more illusions. No more taking others for granted. You are responsible for what happens in this house, and for the first time, you must act accordingly. Jessica sank into a chair, her head in her hands. I don't know what to do. Michael interjected with gentle authority. Start by admitting the truth. Communicate honestly with your family. The rest, preparing meals, organizing, managing, will follow. But it begins with accountability. Ryan finally met his mother's eyes over the phone. Mom, we get it now. We messed up. I see everything you've done for us all these years. And we're sorry. Sarah's calm, distant voice came through the phone. Good. That's the beginning. Now you have to live it. The morning continued with a flurry of controlled chaos, but this time, it was purposeful. Jessica and Ryan were finally participating in the work, learning what it truly takes to run a household and host a family. Alejandro and Valeria guided them patiently, pointing out omissions and oversights, but also showing them how to correct them. By noon, the Bennett household was still far from perfect, but it was alive with honest effort, responsibility, and for the first time in years, respect for the person who had quietly carried the family's burdens. And somewhere in her hotel suite, Sarah smiled. The first steps of her long-planned justice were complete. The rest of the day, and the confrontation to come, would teach lessons far more valuable than any Christmas feast could. By mid-afternoon, the Bennett household resembled a battlefield more than a home. Grocery bags spilled across the counters, holiday decorations hung lopsided, and the aroma of hastily microwaved food filled the air. Ryan and Jessica were frantically trying to coordinate a meal for 25 relatives, but every attempt only revealed their unpreparedness. From her hotel suite miles away, Sarah monitored the situation with satisfaction. She knew the real lesson wasn't just about the chaos. It was about confronting years of neglecting responsibility. The documents she had sent Alejandro and Valeria had done their work. The family was now aware of the pattern of exploitation and deceit, and Jessica could no longer hide behind charm and excuses. Alejandro, stern and deliberate, took control. Ryan, Jessica, stop panicking. Let's break this down logically. We'll call a few local restaurants, see what's available for delivery, and prioritize the guests with dietary restrictions. The rest, we improvise. Valeria sorted through receipts and notes Sarah had sent. Look at these records. 4 or 5 years, every event, every dinner, every holiday was meticulously planned by your mother-in-law. Jessica, this isn't magic. This is work, and you took credit for it. Jessica's face flushed crimson. I didn't think anyone would notice. I wanted everything to be perfect. Alejandro's gaze pierced her. Perfection? By ignoring the people who made it possible? By taking advantage of the person who kept this family running? Ryan swallowed hard. Mom, I never realized. I didn't see how much you did for us, for everyone. Across town, Sarah smiled faintly, knowing her son's acknowledgement was just the beginning. She had orchestrated this moment to teach responsibility, not just to Jessica, but to Ryan as well. The first deliveries began arriving. Pizzas, sandwiches, trays of assorted salads, while Jessica and Ryan scrambled to set tables and organize cutlery. The sight was both ironic and humbling. 25 people dining off paper plates and disposable napkins, amidst a home that should have been beautifully decorated. Alejandro called a brief family meeting. Everyone, I want to be clear. The holiday is not ruined because of food or decor. It's about accountability, honesty, and respect. Jessica, you will have to explain yourself to each person here and accept responsibility for your actions. Jessica's voice shook. I understand. I'm sorry. I never meant for things to get out of hand. Valeria stepped forward. Sorry is not enough. You've borrowed money under false pretenses, claimed inheritances that weren't yours, and relied on Sarah to solve your problems. Now it's time for restitution. Ryan winced, realizing the extent of Jessica's deception and his own blind complicity. I should have seen it. Mom, we owe you more than we can say. Meanwhile, Sarah's lawyer, Michael, had sent updated documents outlining the legal consequences for unauthorized use of credit and identity fraud. Alejandro and Valeria reviewed them carefully. Jessica, Alejandro said, handing her the documents. This is serious. You will have to repay the borrowed funds, provide a full account to the family, and face any legal consequences for your fraudulent actions. Jessica's eyes widened. She slumped into a chair, finally grasping the enormity of her situation. I, I didn't think. Ryan took her hand cautiously. We're in this together. We have to fix it, and we have to learn from this. Mom deserves respect, and she won't be ignored anymore. By evening, the first steps toward resolution had begun. While the household was far from perfect, it was alive with genuine effort. Jessica and Ryan worked side by side with Alejandro and Valeria, acknowledging mistakes, organizing meals, and even preparing simple decorations. From her hotel suite, Sarah watched as the family finally started to grasp the reality she had been enforcing from afar. She knew this was just the beginning. The real reckoning would come when the extended family faced Jessica's deceit, when the loans were addressed, and when each manipulated family member realized the truth. But for now, Sarah allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. The chaos she had orchestrated was doing exactly what she had intended, exposing lies, enforcing accountability, and finally, making the family confront the truth. The morning of December 24th was crisp and clear, the sky a pale winter blue. Sarah packed her bags with calm precision, reviewing every detail of the final phase she had been planning for months. Her lawyer, Michael, confirmed that all documents were ready: amendments to her will, new residency agreements, and protections for her son Ryan's interests. Every legal safeguard was in place. Today would be the day her family would confront the truth. As her taxi arrived at the Bennett residence, Sarah felt a mixture of anticipation and satisfaction. The house, normally pristine under her supervision, was in mild disarray, a fitting mirror of Jessica's lack of planning. Ryan opened the door, dark circles under his eyes, a mixture of hope and dread in his expression. Behind him stood Jessica, disheveled, eyes puffy from crying, clothes wrinkled, a far cry from the polished persona she often presented. Following them were Alejandro and Valeria, holding folders and documents, their expressions a mix of disappointment and determination. Marco and Evelyn appeared behind them, silent witnesses to the unfolding drama. Sarah, Alejandro said, stepping forward, his tone respectful. It is an honor to meet you. We are deeply sorry that this is under such circumstances. The honor is mine, Sarah replied calmly, her gaze steady. Sometimes the truth needs to arrive dramatically. At that moment, Michael, her lawyer, rang the doorbell. I believe we are all ready for the conversation that has been postponed for far too long, he said, his presence adding legal weight to the room. Jessica's eyes widened. Why is there a lawyer here? After 5 years of emotional manipulation, financial deception, and complete disregard for respect, Sarah said coolly, I require legal protection. Ryan looked confused. Legal protection from what? From attempts to use my future death as collateral for loans, Sarah replied. From schemes to sell or mortgage my house without my consent. From unauthorized use of your credit information. Do you want me to continue? Jessica slumped onto the sofa, finally realizing her world of lies had crumbled. Michael continued. First, the changes to the will. Sarah has amended her estate so that the house cannot be sold or mortgaged without her explicit consent, even after her death. The property is now in a trust protecting Ryan's interests while prohibiting financial speculation. Tears welled in Jessica's eyes. Ryan looked shocked and ashamed. Second, the new residency terms, Michael said. Jessica no longer has unrestricted access to this property. All visits must be approved by Sarah in advance. Ryan's voice trembled. That means she can't just. Exactly, Sarah said. No more assuming that I will be your unpaid domestic support. No more giving orders about food or time. No more taking credit for what I do. Alejandro turned to Jessica, his tone heavy with disappointment. For years, we trusted you and provided support based on lies. You manipulated us, and you disrespected the person who deserves our admiration. It ends now. There was one more item Sarah addressed directly to Jessica. You will repay every penny borrowed using false pretenses, apologize to every deceived family member, and learn to live within your true means, not in the fantasy you've built. Valeria added, and if you do not comply, legal consequences for identity fraud and credit misuse will follow. Sarah looked around the room at her son, at the extended family, and finally at Jessica. For 5 years, I sacrificed my dignity, believing I was keeping this family together. Today, I've learned that a family built on manipulation and disrespect is not a family at all. It's a toxic structure. Ryan's head bowed, acknowledging years of willful ignorance. I, I love you, Mom. I see now what I ignored. I will change. I promise. The clock struck noon. Sarah smiled, feeling the culmination of months of careful planning. Those who wish to celebrate a holiday built on honesty, respect, and gratitude are welcome to stay. Those who prefer lies and manipulation may leave. For the first time in 5 years, Sarah stood in her home feeling a sense of total control over her life, her house, and her future. Freedom, long denied, was finally hers. The afternoon light filtered through the living room windows, casting sharp patterns across the polished floor. Sarah remained calm, seated in her favorite armchair, while Michael organized the documents on the coffee table. Jessica, still pale and shaken, avoided eye contact, her hands fidgeting nervously. Ryan hovered near her, torn between protecting his wife and facing reality. Valeria opened her folder, scanning the papers quickly. Jessica, I need you to explain these accounts, she said firmly, her voice betraying a mix of anger and disbelief. Multiple credit lines in Ryan's name you opened without his knowledge. Loans from relatives based on promises of inheritance that don't exist. Expenses you claimed as business costs that were purely personal indulgences. Care to explain? Jessica stammered, her voice trembling. I thought. I didn't mean to. Alejandro interrupted sharply. You didn't mean to? You manipulated your own family and your mother-in-law for years. This isn't an accident. This is deception and fraud. Michael leaned forward. Let me make one thing perfectly clear. Every financial transaction Jessica made without proper authorization is legally actionable. There will be no leniency for attempts to obscure facts or delay accountability. Sarah watched quietly, a quiet satisfaction building. This was the moment the facade would crumble completely. She had endured years of her son and daughter-in-law taking her for granted, and now they would confront the truth. Jessica began to cry, real tears this time, not for the attention or sympathy she had once cultivated, but for the very tangible consequences she had created. I didn't want to hurt anyone, she whispered. Didn't want to hurt anyone? Sarah's voice was firm but calm. You lied, manipulated, and took advantage of my trust for years. You assumed I would always clean up your messes. Today, you are learning that there are limits. Ryan's face was pale. I had no idea, he said softly. I swear, Mom, I didn't know the extent of her actions. Alejandro softened slightly. Ryan, it's understandable. But now you must step up as a responsible adult. Help your mother-in-law manage the aftermath and ensure Jessica faces the consequences of her actions. Valeria turned her attention back to Jessica. Repayment plans will be established immediately. Loans from relatives are being called in. Any further financial obligations you attempted to create will be canceled. This is your chance to make amends. Jessica's shoulders slumped. She was cornered, exposed, and finally realizing the weight of her choices. I understand. I will try to make it right, she said weakly, but the words felt hollow even to herself. Sarah finally spoke, addressing everyone. Family isn't about appearances or temporary convenience. It's about respect, honesty, and accountability. For years, I tolerated being treated as invisible, as a servant, as someone whose contributions were erased. Today, that ends. Jessica will learn that actions have consequences. Ryan will learn that ignoring injustice is still a choice. And this family, all of you, will witness the importance of integrity. Marco, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. We've underestimated the emotional and financial manipulation. But now, with Sarah leading, we can correct course. We can rebuild trust, not on lies, but on mutual respect and responsibility. Michael closed the final folder, his tone decisive. All legal measures are in place. Any further attempts to obscure or manipulate will result in immediate legal action. Consider this the start of rebuilding your family with accountability at the core. Jessica buried her face in her hands. No more lies could save her. No more excuses could shield her. And for the first time, the gravity of her deceit struck her fully. Sarah leaned back, letting the moment unfold. This was the reckoning she had envisioned. The emotional, social, and financial consequences were converging, and Jessica, along with everyone else, would have to face them. As the room settled into tense silence, Ryan finally whispered, "Mom, thank you for everything." And for the first time in years, Sarah allowed herself a small, victorious smile. Her family would finally understand the true meaning of respect, responsibility, and gratitude. The morning of Christmas Eve arrived crisp and cold, the kind of winter day that seemed to sharpen every emotion. Sarah stood quietly in the kitchen, savoring a hot cup of coffee, while outside the neighborhood slowly came alive. She had deliberately returned home early, ensuring she would witness the unfolding chaos firsthand. The front door opened with a tentative creak, and Ryan entered first, his eyes shadowed with guilt and fatigue. Jessica followed, her appearance disheveled, makeup smeared, and clothing wrinkled from restless sleep. Behind them, Alejandro and Valeria arrived, flanked by Marco and Evelyn. The tension in the air was palpable, charged with the anticipation of the confrontation that Sarah had orchestrated. Michael appeared shortly after, carrying a stack of documents. "Good morning," he said formally, his presence lending an undeniable gravity. "We are all here to clarify a few things." Jessica's voice trembled as she tried to regain control. "Mom, we." Alejandro cut her off. "Jessica, no more excuses. Today, we address every lie, every debt, every deception you have perpetrated over the years. We will no longer tolerate half-truths or fabricated stories. The time for illusions is over." Valeria stepped forward, her folder clutched tightly. "We've gone through your accounts, your credit activities, and your promises to this family. Everything is documented. Every irregularity, every misrepresentation is here. You will answer for them." Jessica's knees wobbled. I didn't think it was that bad." Marco's voice was sharp. "Not that bad. You've used your husband's identity, taken money from relatives under false pretenses, and manipulated your mother-in-law for years. That is not bad. That is deceit at its worst." Sarah observed silently, letting the words sink in. She had spent years watching Jessica's manipulations unfold, feeling invisible and exploited. Today, she would no longer be silent. "Jessica," Sarah said finally, her voice calm but authoritative, "for 5 years, I have been your unpaid domestic servant, your silent partner in every gathering, every holiday, every family obligation. You took the credit. You enjoyed the praise. You ignored the effort behind it. Today, you will learn that actions have consequences, and no amount of crying or pleading will erase what you've done." Jessica turned to Ryan, desperate for support. "Ryan, please." Ryan's eyes were wide with realization. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know how much you were hiding from me." Alejandro shook his head slowly. "And yet, as an adult, it is your responsibility to notice, to question, to intervene. Ignorance is not protection." Valeria opened the folder and laid out the documents meticulously on the table. "Every loan you solicited, every false claim you made about inheritance or financial support, every expense you hid, all of it is here. And it must be accounted for." Jessica's face drained of color. She sank into a chair, speechless, overwhelmed by the weight of the evidence. Michael spoke next, outlining the legal consequences. "Sarah has taken measures to protect her property and finances. Any further misuse of credit, unauthorized transactions, or attempts to manipulate this family will result in immediate legal action. Repayment plans are in place. The family support you expected will not materialize until you demonstrate accountability." Sarah finally addressed the room. "This is not just about money. This is about respect, honesty, and integrity. For years, I sacrificed my dignity to keep the family functioning. Today, you are learning the true cost of deception. Ryan, you must decide the kind of man you want to be. Jessica, you must decide if you will grow into a responsible adult or remain trapped in lies." A long silence filled the room, broken only by the soft ticking of the clock. For the first time, Jessica's facade had completely collapsed. She could no longer hide behind charm or excuses. Alejandro placed a steady hand on Ryan's shoulder. You have the opportunity to help repair this family, but it will take truth, effort, and humility. Are you ready? Ryan nodded, his jaw tight. Yes, I will help. I need to. Sarah allowed herself a small, victorious smile. The intervention had begun. The family was now confronting the full scope of deception, and for the first time, honesty and accountability were at the center of their gathering. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, the winter sun bright on the snow-covered lawns. Inside, the first steps toward rebuilding trust, respect, and responsibility were unfolding. And for Sarah, it was the most satisfying Christmas she had ever experienced. By midday, the house was filled with an unusual tension, the kind that makes every whisper sound like a shout. Sarah remained composed, her presence commanding yet calm, while Jessica retreated into a corner, unable to maintain her facade any longer. Alejandro and Valeria organized the documents on the dining table, showing each family member the detailed records of Jessica's manipulations. Marco and Evelyn exchanged grim looks, clearly shaken by the depth of the deception. Jessica, Alejandro began, voice steady but firm. How do you respond to this? Jessica opened her mouth, closed it, and then sighed heavily. I thought I was helping. I didn't mean any harm. I just wanted everything to be perfect. Valeria's laugh was sharp and bitter. Perfect? You called for a Christmas dinner for 25 people without knowing how to feed them. You borrowed money under false pretenses. You used your husband's identity for credit. This is not perfection. This is chaos. Ryan stepped forward, his eyes finally clear, the fog of ignorance lifting. Mom, I had no idea how much you were manipulating everything. I thought you were just stressed. I didn't realize the scale. Sarah turned to him, softening slightly. Ryan, for 5 years, I handled every detail, every guest, every holiday. You never noticed because you assumed it would just happen. Today, you see what happens when responsibility is ignored. Jessica's sobs became louder, no longer contained. I just wanted to make everyone happy. I didn't know how to do anything else. I'm sorry. Alejandro shook his head. Apologies are just words, Jessica. Today, we see actions. You must take responsibility, face the consequences, and learn to live honestly. Your lies have affected every person in this room. Valeria stepped closer, holding out a folder. These are the repayment plans, the corrected financial statements, and the agreements for accountability. You will review them and understand that manipulation has real consequences. Jessica flinched at the weight of the documents. Her eyes darted around the room, realizing that everyone was fully aware of her actions. The shock of exposure was overwhelming. Marco's voice was firm. Your games are over. There is no more hiding behind charm, excuses, or pretend generosity. We trusted you, and you betrayed that trust. Sarah observed quietly, savoring the moment. For years, she had been pushed aside, overlooked, and exploited. Now, the house was hers again, not just in ownership, but in authority. Ryan approached Jessica cautiously. We have to rebuild trust. But it has to start with honesty. No more secrets, no more lies. Jessica nodded weakly, tears streaming down her face. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. Alejandro spoke finally, addressing the entire family. Let this be a lesson. Family is built on respect, honesty, and accountability. Anything else is a fragile illusion that will collapse under pressure. Sarah felt a profound sense of satisfaction. The chaos, the panic, the confrontation, it was all unfolding exactly as she had envisioned. Jessica had to face her actions, Ryan had to confront his ignorance, and the family was now aware of the full truth. Outside, the winter sun shone brightly, reflecting off the snow-covered streets. Inside, the house was filled with tension, but also a strange sense of clarity. For the first time in years, the family's dysfunction was laid bare, and for the first time, there was a real chance for growth, accountability, and, perhaps, forgiveness. By evening, the emergency Christmas dinner had taken an unexpected turn. Instead of a lavish feast, the family sat on mismatched chairs, eating pizza from paper plates, the irony deliciously palpable. Laughter mixed with sighs, tears with grudging smiles, as the absurdity of the situation highlighted the stark contrast between illusion and reality. Sarah leaned back in her chair, watching the scene unfold. The truth had finally been revealed. and the consequences were undeniable. This Christmas, the family was learning a hard lesson in honesty, respect, and the value of those who truly hold the household together. The morning after the Christmas showdown, the house felt different. The air was thick with tension, yet oddly lighter, as if the weight of years of deceit had finally been lifted. Sarah moved through the rooms with quiet confidence, observing the family as they processed the events of the previous day. Jessica stayed mostly silent, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She no longer tried to charm or deflect. The reality of her actions had finally penetrated her carefully constructed bubble. The documents laid out by Valeria, Marco, and Alejandro had left her cornered and accountable. Ryan approached Sarah cautiously. "Mom, I still can't believe how much I missed. How could I not see what she was doing?" Sarah looked at him with measured patience. "Ryan, for 5 years, you assumed responsibility would magically happen. You didn't notice because you didn't want to. Today, you are seeing the truth. Now, it's your choice whether you step up or continue ignoring it." Meanwhile, Alejandro and Valeria were coordinating next steps. "Jessica, we've reviewed the financial records," Valeria said sternly. "You owe significant sums to multiple relatives, and the loans you took using Ryan's information must be repaid immediately." Jessica flinched. I understand. I'll start repaying." Marco interjected. "Understanding isn't enough. We need a concrete plan. You will make a schedule, communicate with each relative, and provide proof of payments. No exceptions," Evelyn added. "And beyond finances, you need to learn basic responsibility. Cooking, cleaning, managing household needs. These are skills you neglected while pretending to be perfect." Jessica nodded weakly, the enormity of the consequences finally sinking in. For the first time, she was forced to confront her incompetence, her deceit, and her dependency on others. Sarah, observing quietly, realized that the real work was only beginning. "Jessica," she said calmly, "this isn't just about money. This is about learning respect and accountability. If you want to be part of this family, you will do things differently. You will stop manipulating, lying, and expecting others to solve your problems." Ryan finally spoke, his voice low but firm. "Mom's right. I can't shield you anymore, Jessica. You have to face the results of your actions, and I'll support the process, but I won't enable you." Jessica's head dropped. I didn't realize how much I depended on you all. I thought I could. I don't know, fake it and no one would notice." Alejandro shook his head. "No one can fake responsibility indefinitely. Now it's time to pay for the choices you made." The family began drafting a plan for Jessica's restitution, a repayment schedule, agreed-upon household responsibilities, and rules for accountability. Sarah insisted that the process be transparent so everyone could witness her compliance. By midday, the first practical steps were underway. Jessica had to organize the grocery shopping for the day, a task she had always delegated. Ryan helped her, not out of pity, but to ensure she learned basic skills she had long ignored. Pizza boxes from the previous evening were replaced with actual ingredients, and Jessica was forced to plan, shop, and prepare the meal. The contrast was stark. Whereas before she had waved her hands as if magic would produce a feast, now she was measuring, chopping, and struggling to organize a functional meal. Laughter, frustration, and begrudging cooperation filled the kitchen. Sarah watched from the doorway, a faint smile on her face. This was the first step in real accountability. Jessica would learn, slowly, that life wasn't a stage for manipulation and false appearances. By evening, the family gathered to eat the meal Jessica had prepared. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. The conversations turned reflective, less about blame, more about lessons. Ryan admitted his previous blindness. Alejandro emphasized the importance of trust, and Valeria reminded everyone that accountability was the foundation of respect. Sarah realized that Christmas had been saved, not through illusions or perfection, but through confrontation, truth, and responsibility. The aftermath of Jessica's deception had forced growth, not just for her, but for everyone who had been blind to the reality. As the night drew to a close, Sarah felt a profound satisfaction. The family was still fractured, but now the cracks were filled with truth rather than lies. And for the first time in years, she could breathe, knowing that honesty and accountability were finally at the center of her home. The morning of December 26th dawned crisp and bright. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the dust motes in the air, but there was a sense of clarity that had never existed in the household before. The chaos of Christmas was behind them, and the long path to accountability and genuine family cohesion was just beginning. Jessica entered the kitchen with a sense of trepidation. Today was not about excuses or tears, it was about action. She pulled out her planner, reviewed the repayment schedule, and started making calls to the relatives she had defrauded. Every conversation was tense, but honest. No lies, no manipulations, only explanations and promises to make things right. Ryan watched her from the doorway. I have to admit, Mom, this is the first time I've really seen her try to fix things. Sarah nodded. It's only the beginning. But you see, Ryan, responsibility isn't just about paying back money. It's about understanding the impact of your choices on others and learning to live with integrity. Meanwhile, Alejandro and Valeria oversaw Jessica's efforts, making sure she completed each task fully. Marco helped with organizing the household for efficiency, ensuring that the mistakes of the past 5 years could not be repeated. By midday, the house was transformed. Meals were prepared thoughtfully, chores were done systematically, and Jessica was learning the rhythm of a functional home. The contrast to her previous behavior was striking. Where she had once waved her hands and demanded perfection from others, she now moved with diligence and purpose. Sarah decided it was time for a family meeting. Everyone gathered in the living room, a mix of nervous anticipation and cautious optimism in their eyes. Alejandro began. This is not about punishment. It is about understanding, growth, and creating a family structure based on respect. Jessica, seated in the center, swallowed hard. I understand now. I've been selfish, manipulative, and careless. I see how much I hurt all of you, and especially Mom. I promise to make amends, not just financially, but in how I behave and live. Ryan reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. I'll help, but you need to do the work. No shortcuts, no pretending. Sarah spoke last, her voice steady and firm. From today onward, our home will run on respect, responsibility, and transparency. Jessica, you will follow the rules we've set. Ryan, you will support your mother and hold your wife accountable. And for the rest of the family, honesty will guide our actions. The room was silent for a moment, everyone absorbing the gravity and promise of these words. Then Alejandro smiled faintly. It seems Christmas gave us an unexpected lesson, one that we needed more than gifts or decorations. It's about family, accountability, and trust. Jessica finally allowed herself a small, genuine smile. It was tentative, fragile, but real. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, she felt the possibility of redemption. Over the following weeks, the changes solidified. The household ran efficiently, responsibilities were shared, and Jessica learned to manage finances and household tasks competently. Ryan became more observant and supportive, understanding the importance of fairness and mutual respect. Sarah, once burdened by invisible labor and unacknowledged efforts, now felt empowered. She had regained control of her home, her family, and her dignity. The lessons of the past, painful though they were, had laid the foundation for a healthier, more honest family dynamic. By the end of January, the family had settled into a new rhythm. Jessica had repaid a significant portion of her debts and was managing the household with guidance. The relationships, once strained by deceit and exploitation, were rebuilding slowly, now rooted in accountability rather than appearances. One evening, Sarah reflected on the ordeal while sitting by the fireplace. The warmth of the flames mirrored the warmth of resolution in her heart. She knew the challenges were not over. Families are never perfect, but for the first time in years, she felt peace, control, and hope. The saga of lies, deception, and manipulation had concluded, leaving behind lessons in integrity, responsibility, and the true meaning of family. And for Sarah, that was the greatest gift she could ever receive.